This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
That's kind of the thing you look at and you're like, holy crap. Like, I was doing it so wrong that I can have, less than half the manpower and actually do more revenue.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now. So we're back. And after a 5-month hiatus, Do It for a Living is back with new interviews, new guests. And I'm here today with Kevin Dubois, the co-founder of MSA. And we're going to talk about your shop management software, My Shop Assist. Kevin, you've got a lot going on these days, man.
Yeah, definitely very busy. We got a whole bunch of projects we're working on. So
right? Between your shop management software, running your shop, teaching shop management classes with our friend Ben Strader at EFI University, and now partnering up and leading the way with Do It for a Living.
Yep. Yeah, we've gotten heavily involved in things since you started the podcast. So it's definitely we took this to heart, the whole thing you put together, and we've tried to expand it as much as we can, as quickly as we can.
So let's dive right in. We'll get into all the nitty-gritty details about the direction of Do It for a Living and all the other things you got going on. But tell us a little bit about yourself and your business. Like, how did you get started in this business or in business in general? What's your background? And take us back all the way to when you were a kid.
Okay, yeah, so I have a little different background than many of the people on here. I was not really a car guy per se growing up. I didn't have a wrench in my hand. I didn't start working on cars really until I was in college. I was involved with pedal biking, so I raced mountain bikes and road bikes in high school and middle school. My first job was actually working at a bike store, so I was a mechanic for them. So that's kind of I don't have the history of building engines from age 3 on up sort of thing, but I definitely started taking interest in it in college. My first car was a Volkswagen Rabbit GTI in '84, so a Mark I. Total piece of crap. A friend of mine gave it to me by taking it out of his yard. It had water damage. Some tenant rented as a room in his house, left it there and just said, "Get it out of here, you can have it." And so I took it back and ripped the wiring harness out of it, replaced the wiring harness, had to do some exhaust work on it, wheels and tires. And
when was this? Like, how old were you when you were doing that?
I was probably 18, so I think it was my first year of college, right out of high school. So like I said, it was kind of I'm a late bloomer, I guess you can say. I also had a 944. That was really the next car that I got that I actually started modifying a little bit. I proceeded to total it out. Within about 2 months of owning it, I spun it out on a dirt road and hit another car. And then I took the insurance money of that and got a 944 turbo, and that's where I really started to take a lot of interest in it, because you could that was a tunable car. Back in the time, it was electromotive was the ECU to get. I never had the money to do that, but I did what I could with it. Did manual boost controller, external wastegate, custom exhaust. We did all kinds of stuff. That very unreliable car as well. I had all kinds of problems with it, but still fun. And that's kind of where I learned how to tinker with this stuff.
By working on crappy cars and trial by fire.
Yeah. They at the pick and pull. This is in Michigan. They have a U-wrench place, and you just bring your toolbox in there. They knew me by name in there. I could, you pay your $1 and I could take whatever part I needed for that Volkswagen, and it was very inexpensive to keep it running. It just was a lot of work.
So you said you're doing all this in college. What were you doing? What was your major, and what's your educational background?
Yeah, so I went to Hope College. That's in Holland, Michigan, and I started as a chemistry major. I still have a lot of interest in that field. I just don't do anything with it. And then I changed about halfway through to a mechanical engineering degree, and that's I think it's my strong suit. I understand it all very well, and I graduated from there, and I went down to Lockheed Martin down in Dallas here, and that's where I started using the education, I guess you can say. So my background really is engineering and then defense industry. So I did that for 7 years, and while I was there, I took the Formula SAE program at UTA. I started working on a master's degree in controls engineering. Never did finish it, but I guess I go back a little bit further. Right out of college, I applied for a job at Bosch in Farmington Hills, Michigan. So they build ECUs for like every OE you can imagine. Mm-hmm. And I applied for a job there, and I had a pretty good in. I knew one of the directors of, I guess it was Powertrain or whatever they had there, and he was able to get me in for an interview. And I actually went back for several interviews, but kind of was turned down, and I think it was because of the lack of Formula SAE experience. And I took that to heart, and when I moved to Texas for the Lockheed job, I made it a point to work on my master's degree and attend a school with Formula SAE program there. And UT Arlington was a great fit, and it just happened to be one of the premier Formula SAE schools in the world, really. So that's kind of the direction I went from college.
Okay, so take me a little bit into the Formula SAE program. Tell our listeners what Formula SAE is, and I didn't realize that employer like Bosch would weigh so heavily on your participation in a successful Formula SAE team. So tell us what it is, and then dive in a little bit more about Formula SAE.
Okay, so Formula SAE is a college, I guess you could say club sport. It's kind of a sport, it's kind of a club. Some schools actually have it as a class. And what it is you design and build a formula car from scratch. So you design it from scratch, you build it from scratch, and then the students get to race it as well. And it can vary wildly from a school that can have 3 people that can barely get a car together, and you bring it to competition, and it's amazing how much you learn from doing that, all the way up to a team that is 17, 20, 30 people strong, lots of corporate involvement through sponsors, and that whole thing kind of ties together with your classes.
So there's not a dollar limit to...
No, there is not. No, in fact, UTA's car is probably one of the most expensive in the world. I mean, it is incredibly well built. We always had the problem of not quite getting it done early enough, so we struggled with reliability. I mean, everybody who races knows that if you don't get the car done in time, you're not gonna perform well. You're not gonna have enough testing on it. You're not gonna break it in. You're not gonna have all the bugs worked out. And that was our.
But you had a big budget.
Yeah, we had a pretty decent budget. We had 17 when I was a team captain in 2006. We had 17 people that pretty much gave. I mean, I would say close to full-time work on it. So, 40 hours a week is what people would spend. And it was all after classes and after homework. It's heavily involved. And, I mean, most people would actually intern at sponsors. So we would have people that would work on the team, and then the summer they would intern for the sponsors. And that was kind of like the in with the professional industry, I guess you could say. And, yeah, the I guess more about the program. It's limited to a 600cc engine, so they do have quite a few rules, but there's no limit to spending. I mean, so some teams they would make their own carbon monocoque chassis. They would have there were teams that we made our own carbon fiber steering wheel and under tray. We had carbon fiber wheels. Anything you can imagine, these teams would dream up and make, and it's really impressive. And yeah, so the final competition is in they do it all over the place now, but it was Detroit when I was in the program, and that was where teams from all over the world would take their cars to. And like the big 3, so Ford, Chevy, Chrysler would all have engineers and I guess executives there as well. They hire pretty much straight out of the program. That's a recruiting center for them is the Formula SAE. So,
Okay, so in college you're doing Formula SAE. You get a BS in mechanical engineering, and you get out and you get a full-time job at Lockheed.
Yep, and I was actually the Formula SAE was at the same time as working at Lockheed. So I was full time at Lockheed at that time,
Okay.
and doing my master's on the side and doing Formula SAE on the side. So I was even very busy then. I would work till 2 or 3 in the morning and come in late every day, and it was I was definitely not a model employee for Lockheed. I was late, and I would always have to stay late because I got in late. And it's nice, salary. You don't have to be there exactly at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. or whatever the time is. You could it's kind of flex time. I could come in at 9 and stay till 6 or whatever the time was for the day. So
Okay, so in that time, you've got a high-paying job. Do you are you happy there? Or do you have the entrepreneurial itch and you're going to go do something else? Like is that happening from the time that you were a kid through high school, through college, and now you're in this job? Or did this seed kind of start growing when you're at Lockheed?
yeah, I mean, growing up, I always dabbled a little bit in stuff. So, I started a car stereo business. Like this, I mean, it would have been considered like a out of your apartment mail, drop shipping radios and stuff. I did that in high school very briefly because I did mess around with stereos and stuff like that. But I never really had an entrepreneurial itch until, I guess, most of the way through Lockheed, my 7-year term that I worked there. I liked the job when I got started. It was interesting. I learned a tremendous amount, and the people I worked with were very, very smart. I mean, some of the smartest people that I've ever met worked there, and it's a a great opportunity to work with them and kind of see how they do things and know how defense industry works. So I learned a lot there, but pretty quickly you realize that defense is not all it's cracked up to be. It's you come in and you do a job that they tell you to do. There's not a lot of freedom to go and kind of expand on what you want to do, and that hung me up a lot. And I got real bored really fast, and I did the work they told me to do, and I did not a whole lot more than that. And it showed, I was never the one who was first to be promoted. I was never the guy getting the awards and stuff. But
because it's a lack of creation, you wanted to do something innovative or new, and you're basically a robot there. Is that the feeling?
Yeah, I mean, that was my impression. I mean, people there definitely tried harder than I did, and they got what they wanted out of it. I kind of felt like I had some cool ideas, I thought, and some of them were not at all relevant to what Lockheed did. And we actually, near the end, I got pretty involved with. They had I guess, kind of a think tank within the division I worked at.
Yeah.
Where they had younger people present ideas. They could be totally irrelevant to defense. So I presented one that was a traffic control system for driving around. You look at every single stoplight when you're driving late at night, and you stop for a red light and there's no cars, right? So I was like, well, everybody's carrying a phone with GPS on it. Why can't the phone talk to the traffic control system and have the light change for you? And so me and a couple of my buddies that worked there, we all kind of thought through it a little bit, and we presented the idea to this think tank. It's I guess like a patent board. I guess they would review the idea and see if it's a patentable idea. And they looked at it and they was like, yeah, it's pretty cool, but not at all what we do. So we don't want to do anything with it. And so we actually took that idea and amazingly, we actually had their lawyers sign off and give us the IP so I could deal with it outside of Lockheed, which is I think it's very rare, but I guess I didn't do a whole lot of that kind of stuff, so I don't know for sure. But yeah.
So when you're at Lockheed, I imagine you're getting paid pretty well. So, and you said you were there for 7 years. How do you make the transition out? When did you decide? And from the time that you decided, how long did it take you before you, the last day? And what did that feel look like? You have a family at that point, I imagine?
Yeah.
And so how do you take the golden handcuffs off and go and do your own thing?
Yeah, that was probably the scariest thing for me was I was married at the time, and my wife and I had just had our first kid. So I think Maddie was probably about I guess she was about 9-10 months old. So she was very young, and my wife had quit her job to take care of her. So we went from almost a triple income. So my income at Lockheed, her income, she had a good paying job. And then I had Evolution Dynamics kind of on the side for probably about maybe about 5 years at the time. So it was very, very side project. So Evolution Dynamics is my shop, of course, and they I just would tune cars out of my garage. I never had a space until
just
probably
to be clear. So
Mm-hmm.
Evolution Dynamics is the shop that you are currently running, where you're building engines and tuning Evos. You
Exactly.
have My Shop Assist, the software
Mm-hmm.
program for shop management in the performance industry. You're running classes with EFI University, and now you're spearheading the Do It for a Living campaign.
Yeah, yeah. Lots of stuff to do. It's definitely, my plate is definitely very full, and it is a struggle at times because, you know, like, as you know, the Do It for a Living podcast is such a great idea, such a great resource, but it takes a lot of time, and you have to work to get a return out of it. And currently, we, you know, like, monetizing it is an important part of this to make it worth our time. But we are going to try to keep it going in the direction that you've taken it so far, without having to make it a rolling advertisement. I really hate
it's not commercial. It's got to be a give.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it's got to be.
Yep, and so we're gonna take it in that direction. So and yeah, Evolution Dynamics takes up a vast majority of my time. It's, you know, like, it started off as a side project, and it was one of those things where I could tune a car on the side because I had Formula SAE experience. I had an engineering degree. I was working on my master's in controls, which is exactly what ECU controls are. You know, so like the theory and all the hardware and all that sort of stuff, like, I understand it pretty well. And so I could do that on the side. I could make money. I was doing really well. Then the city got on my case probably about 2 years before I quit Lockheed. And I had to move into an actual shop because I had several Evos parked in my driveway waiting for tunes and parts and whatever.
So 2 years before you left Lockheed, you were pretty heavily involved in building Evos and doing side projects.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was.
So it was spooling up while you were working there.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't just jump off a cliff and hope it worked. I had built up a fairly decent customer base, at least enough where I knew I had work to do. And so I was able to get a small shop, you know, like, I mean, it was maybe 1,500 square feet at the most, probably about 1,500 square feet. You know, and then I was able to take in more cars, and within a month it was already full. So then I had to double the size of it within a month. And so I was up to about, maybe it was 2,000 square feet between the two bays. And I had probably 8 cars in there at a time. And I could do, you know, I didn't do my own engine building at the time. I still outsourced that. But we did our own street tuning, installs, clutch installs. We even had started. Yeah, exactly. We started dabbling with roll cages at the time. So we had some fab equipment. And that's kind of the start of the transition from making it a side project to a full-time gig. So after probably maybe a year in that building, we moved into a much bigger building, and it was 4,000 square feet.
Still at Lockheed.
Still at Lockheed, yep. And I had a full-time employee at the time, and this is where it started to become out of hand, right? So it's really hard to manage a person when you're not at the shop. And pretty quickly, my wife realized I'd work, you know, and Lockheed is a 980, so you work 4 days a week 1 week and 5 days a week the other. So I'd work 10 hours a day at Lockheed 1 week. Then I would come home. Then I would go to the shop for another, 5-6 hours or whatever I could put in without passing out. And we had a kid, and so like I'm missing out on all that. And, we just kind of both came to the conclusion that Lockheed, as well as it paid and the benefits I got from it, is just not fun for me. I did not enjoy going there, and I did not, just the daily grind was just killing me. So I gave up that one, and that's, we kind of went over the finances of it. I mean, we had a pretty decent savings between the two of us. So we, you have 401k, and we both had pensions, and, cash on, when you don't have a kid, you have a lot of money, so that's why we all race cars before we have kids.
Okay. So you finally decided to make the leap. I feel like it's a opposite decision that a lot of people make when they have a family and a wife, and she's just quit her job. I feel like a lot of times there's pressure to stay in the golden handcuffs type position because you can go to work for 8 hours a day, make more money than you'd be making working 16 hours a day. But it sounds like the support that you had moved you in the direction that basically that you're in now and that you wanted to go. So I feel like a missing link that a lot of people don't have is the support in the background, because you went to your wife and sat down and were like, look, this thing pays, but I hate it. This thing, we can make it work, but it's going to take, I don't know, a lot more time. The point I'm trying to make is that I think the missing link is the support in the background. And I think that people need to hear that you had that, and that's pretty important.
Yeah. And I definitely couldn't have done it without my wife, and she actually does a lot for the shop as well. So she does she has been doing it pretty much since I started dating her, and shortly after I started dating her is when we actually formed the Evolution Dynamics company legally. And so she's been around since literally the very beginning, and she has done most of my she does all our bills and a lot of our accounting stuff. Or I should say all of our accounting stuff. I do very, very little of that. So she, she's involved, so she knows what it takes. And we kind of, this is one of those, you look back and think like, yeah, that was pretty stupid. But I think I made a pretty bad analysis of how actually profitable my shop was. That's why you have a savings, right? So you have a little bit of buffer to work from. And, you look at your books, and if you don't do your books right, or if you don't do your projections correctly, it's just a guess. And I more or less we guessed, and I didn't guess very well because it was a very quick, slippery slope down the money hole. And I had as many as – so right after I had quit Lockheed, I had hired another guy, and then I hired a third guy because I had so many cars at the shop, you can't get them done. You need more hands to do them all. And I just was not a very good manager. And, you start paying 3 full-time people, and my savings depleted pretty much immediately. It was pretty quick. So, a full shop with 3 full-time people and then trying to support your family is just without a good base to build from is difficult.
Right. Okay, so that transitions perfectly. Tell us about the worst experience that you've had in business.
So, I did have one. I have a couple of them in here, but the worst business thing that I had was right after I had my kid. We had an opportunity where a fellow shop in the area had actually offered to merge our 2 businesses. So they were not a competing business, but they were a different platform. And we had talked to them about, we met a couple times, and the idea really sounded pretty good. This was I guess this was right before I quit Lockheed too. So I guess I had an out right here before I quit Lockheed. I had the out of I could give up the car stuff right then and there, or I could keep doing it. And I actually made the jump to drop the car shop and sell it off to them and help them kind of on the side. And, I didn't get lawyers involved, and there was a lot of assumptions made between both sides. And so we both made mistakes, and it was just a mess. And, at the time we hated each other's guts, within about 2 months of this kind of merger. And we packed our stuff back up and moved it into the bigger shop that I had. And so there was like a 2-month transition from a small shop to a bigger shop, and that was kind of the mess. And the lesson learned is anytime you're dealing with I guess your business, you have to have lawyers involved. It's that simple. And we had talked about doing it at the time, but we just didn't do it, and it was a mistake. It cost me dearly, and I'm sure it cost them money too, because it's just, you do something like that, you spend a lot of time and start moving forward on a path, and then very quickly it doesn't work, and so you have to turn around and do it a different direction. And then that was I guess the worst business experience I've had. I also had a big financial loss. I think a lot of people are pretty familiar with the Pikes Peak hill climb. In 2012. I had my race car. It was I had built it to be a showcase car.
And it's a what?
It was an Evo 8. It was a NASA race car that I had built to take myself, just do time trialing. And we tweaked it a bit to do the hill climb, and I guess I should say we tweaked it a lot. We stripped it down to the bare shell, cleaned off the bottom of the car, up. We had to make some changes to the roll cage to be Pikes Peak compliant. Painted the car, custom engine, in electronics, the digital dash. We made a custom dry carbon hood for it, under tray. I mean, we did everything you could possibly do to this car in the time we had. And it was just one of those racing things, it's always kind of there. Like, you can crash a car, and you always think, well, yeah, if I crash a car, I can fix it. But Pikes Peak is totally different. If you crash at Pikes Peak, it's a total loss,
Game
essentially.
ender.
And yeah,
totally yard sale.
Totally yard sale, yeah. So if you've never seen the video, just Google Jeremy Foley Pikes Peak. Really, you could just type in Pikes Peak crash. I think it's the #1 hit on YouTube. There's several videos. We had several on-car videos, and so we. So
you had GoPros on the car.
Yeah, we had 5 of them. So we had 3 of them facing forward, 1 of them inside, and 1 of them facing backwards. And the one inside of the car ran out of batteries about halfway up, and one of the cameras outside broke, or rather the data was corrupted. The camera still worked.
Okay, so just so anybody who's listening, type in Pikes Peak crash. It is the #1 hit.
Yeah, and it's a pretty crazy video. The car rolled, I think, about 12, 14 times in that range. It went down the hill about 400 feet, I think we measured, so over a football field. And it's just straight off a cliff. I mean, if you've been up to that mountain, it's crazy, like just driving up it at 30 miles an hour. And we had GPS on the car, so he was going about 60 in that corner when he went off. And you just watch the car fly for, it seems like an eternity. And, I was not driving the car, so we had worked with Jeremy we practiced a bunch before, so he had seat time in the car, and he had an Evo himself, so he's familiar with the platform. And just not enough practice, I guess. So, you don't really get to experience race day until you do it. And we just went with a wildly fast car going for a fast time. And I don't know if it was a wet road or if he was going too fast or tires overheated, whatever it may be the case, just cooked it through the corner. It understeered off and went off the cliff. And I think I had, between money and time, probably $100,000 into that car.
Wow.
We had a lot of time. Working at a shop, you get parts all at, cost or sponsored. But, you know how it goes. It adds up really fast when you spend 3 months straight trying to design aero package for a car and you're not really experienced at doing it. 3 months of working straight on your own car doesn't pay the bills,
Okay, so how long after you started your shop full time did this happen?
This was 2012, so I guess it was right after, so maybe a year after.
Okay, so
pretty
fresh.
After.
So this is you're still very or pretty early and spooling up. How do you overcome what happened there? Like, what kind of an impact did that have on you, and what were the thoughts? Like, do you quit? Do you move forward? Does that even cross your mind? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with that?
Well, we had very quick aspirations to take that and run with it. You get the public. So that video went viral immediately, and it was worldwide. Within a second. So we got back to so I guess first of all, Jeremy and Yuri was the navigator and Jeremy was the driver. When it happens, I was sitting at the bottom watching from the Red Bull live feed, and first your heart sinks to your toes, and you're just like, I think I just killed, or the driver and the navigator, I think they're dead. That was the first thing that came to my mind. You see that thing tumbling, and you're like, there is no way anybody's going to survive that. And the unfortunate thing was the Red Bull feed cuts back and forth to other cars, so I didn't get to see them climbing out of the car. And so we had run to the tech inspectors or safety crew or whoever they were. They had the radios, so I was with them kind of listening in on the radio, and they were pretty quick to say that Jeremy got out, and there were some questions as to whether or not Yuri was okay. They had said he had head trauma, and so they airlifted him out of there, and Jeremy came down on an ambulance, and I took our rental car and followed them both straight to the hospital. And I was there. It's kind of one of those things you kind of tear up, and you're wondering, like I think this guy's going to be hurt permanently. And really thank the Lord. Like, it was one of those things where neither one of them were hurt. Yuri dislocated his shoulder, and other than bangs and bruises, both of them like literally walked away from that crash, and it's kind of unbelievable. So like we we dodged a bullet there, and so you get back to the hotel and you see the videos that people had posted starting to go viral, and I mean it was like within 2 or 3 hours there was like 100,000 hits of that video, and we you kind of like get your 5 minutes of fame, and like, is that something we should take advantage of? So we already were like, how do you take advantage of this opportunity? And we
all eyes are on you. Everybody's fine. So how do we take advantage of?
Yeah, and I failed miserably. I mean, I have no idea. I have no idea how to monetize an opportunity like that, without being like blatantly douchebag, right? And so, we were like, well, we have the opportunity to build another car for next year, so we contacted a whole bunch of people to try to get some sponsors, and several people that we had worked with in the past, were very quick to be on board with it. But the time and money it takes to build a car like that is something I just did not have again. Mm-hmm. And so we're hoping for a big cash sponsor, and it never came to fruition. So it kind of went to the side. Jeremy had raced a couple times with limited success, I guess. He had rented a car because we weren't able to build another Evo, so he rented a car, and that thing was kind of a disaster. I think the next year we built another one, a replica for Yuri, the passenger. So it looks very similar to the car. It was a stock engine, though, so he went in knowing that he was just wanting to finish, and it worked out well for him because he actually did finish, and he finished with a pretty quick time for a first-time driver, and that's, I guess, our redemption. So I guess it was not obviously 10 million hits on YouTube. That thing was probably our friends and family watching it only, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, the whole taking advantage of stuff like that is really hard to do, and I mean, I don't know per se like exactly how to take advantage of a situation like that, and I mean, I know there are people that can and do know how to do it. Just I'm not one of them.
Different skill sets.
Exactly.
So okay, you're running Evolution Dynamics. Things are going moderately well. You almost kill a couple guys, no big deal. Everybody's fine. Now you're back in the shop trying to figure out how to make your shop work better. Is this about the time that My Shop Assist starts to blossom? Like, what is My Shop Assist?
Yeah, so it is. This is the exact same time. So we had one of my customers, Todd Ersley, which you have met, and we'll hear from him more in these podcasts, I'm sure. But,
and so you're co-founder.
My Shop Assist co-founder, yes. So he was a customer of Evolution Dynamics. So he did a lot of road racing with us. So that was our passion, is more road racing and time trial stuff. And so he was a customer of mine, and he was also an engineer. So he has an engineering degree, also doing defense. And he started working on his MBA, and we had been talking about him, and we had just finished building a pretty nice road racing car for him, and he kind of talked to us a lot. We hung out at the shop a lot, and he's like, you know what? Hey, we have he said he needs an opportunity to intern for his MBA program. So, and the typical corporate job I think that he was wanting was not hiring, and he thought this was a good opportunity to do an entrepreneurship sort of internship, something really kind of out on your own and not just kind of following the path.
Yep.
And fortunately, it started off as a disaster, and I think you would agree with that. Like, as everybody in this industry knows, running a shop is incredibly hard, and until you have a lot of experience with it, I mean, you cannot just jump in it and do it, And so he came on board as a intern to manage the shop, and he, where do you start? Like, how do you do it? And it's just, it's hard to do. I mean, it's very, very hard to do. Something you can't learn in a business school. And I mean, even 2 or 3 years, it's a hands-on thing. You got to really learn it. And so he came on, and we kind of struggled with kind of defining a role and what to do with it. And I had always kind of in the back of my mind had an idea for like making an app. And while I was at Lockheed, I had done MATLAB Simulink programming, so that was like what I did 5 days a week was all MATLAB Simulink programming. And I had learned a lot of tools within that program on actually kind of developing my own code. And so I took what I learned at Lockheed and I kind of thought like, hey Todd, how about we make an app for managing the shop? Like some of these things are really like rudimentary where a piece of software can do it. And for example, like emailing customers an update, right? Like so, as a shop owner, it takes time to write an email and send it to somebody. Keeping people updated is a lot of work. And when you have 25, 30 cars at your shop, it's 25 times as much work. And so we kind of like hashed out like, we kind of sat down like, yeah, like we could make an app. Like what are the things at a shop that we can like automate? What are some things that you don't need a person to do that can be done? And we kind of made a list pretty quickly of the things that I struggled with the most. The biggest one for me was giving parts away. I probably gave away $50,000 in parts in the course of Evolution Dynamics.
Just because you're not tracking it.
Yeah, not remembering that I put it on a car. I mean, I love working fast, and I was very proficient at fixing cars. And I had all the stuff to fix. I only worked on Evos, so whatever I needed, I had. So you start tuning a car, and very quickly it's out of fuel. Like it takes me 2 minutes to put a fuel pump in that thing, but it's an $80 fuel pump, and I would just forget that it was put on the car. There's $80 out the window, right? So, I mean, I did not realize the scope of it until we came out with the software, right? You don't realize how much you're losing until you keep track of what you're losing. And that was kind of one of the many things we kind of addressed. So phone calls being the other one, people calling for updates. We wanted to be able to have the customers have an app that they could log in and see the status of their vehicles with without having to call us all the time.
Before you get too far, I want to reiterate the magnitude of what you're talking about. $80 fuel pump at a time is thousands and thousands of dollars over the year that doesn't do anybody any good to not charge. So people just don't realize in a performance shop environment the kind of stuff that they're giving away, because I think that's a lot of people have that same mindset where like, I just need to do this real quick, I'm going to do that, and we'll charge them for it later, and later never comes.
Yeah.
So it's just a temporary fix, and temporary is the first step to permanent.
Yeah, and it's we have visited a lot of shops, and it's pretty universal where people love to just put their heads down and fix the car. Like that is like kind of our industry. Like we love to make the car run right and make it work right. But when you start actually looking at the business side of things, and this is something I was very bad at. I missed so many opportunities running the business. If I had done it over from the beginning, I'd be sitting pretty right now. But I'm 6 or 7 years of doing it wrong adds up really quickly, and then it takes a number of very good years to dig yourself out of that hole. And that's I'm still in the digging myself out of the hole, but I'm in a trajectory upward. So,
and My Shop Assist is the tool that you're using, and you're trying to make available for everybody else, or rather is available for everybody else.
Yeah. And so I guess we'll go back to with Todd here. So we had agreed that we would morph his internship into creating My Shop Assist. And so this was probably about 2 months before that Pikes Peak crash. I took my skills with MATLAB. I had my student version still, and so I kind of hashed out some real basic GUI and some data side of things, so kind of tracking like all the stuff that we were going to do to the cars. And we went through about 20 revisions over the course of that summer, or spring-summer time frame. And you'll notice even on the Pikes Peak car, on the windshield banner was the My Shop Assist logo, and that was pre anybody knowing what it was. So that was kind of our quick. We're coming out with a company, nobody knows about it, but we're going to have it on this car. And yeah, so we kind of developed it all ourselves in-house. And I mean, all I was able to do is make a C++ executable. So I could run it on one laptop, and that's the extent of my programming knowledge. And then from there, we took it as we were trying to find somebody that could develop it into an actual iPhone, iPad app. And one of my other customers he owns a software firm, and this guy is amazing. We went to him, asked him like what we should be paying to have this done. So we had gotten a couple quotes from people, and they're all over the board. So software is incredibly expensive, and I think Jordan Watson's interview is pretty interesting too. So he knows firsthand how expensive it is. But you get quotes. If you get a low quote, that's still like 10,000 plus. And you look at it and you're like, that's a great deal. And then you see the other quotes and you're like, there is no way this guy's going to be doing what I need for this, for this still pretty decent sum of money.
Yeah.
And so my buddy, I guess his name's Sean, he gave us, he looked at our idea and he's like, I can do this for you guys. Like, this is right up my alley. This is exactly what we do. And he said he came in, he did a fixed bid price. I think that was a mistake on his part, but I think he likes us or likes us. Yeah. So he ate quite a bit of that one, I'm sure, because he spent a lot more time on it than he billed us for. And he did a great job. I'm so thankful for the ability that he had and the drive that he had to get it done right. And it's pretty much he took what we had laid out and is able to develop it into a web page, which is where we're at now, and it's all a web page. So we kind of ditched the idea of doing it as an app because you run into compatibility issues, and then you have to do the iTunes Store certification stuff. So there's a lot of work to making it an app versus just making it a web page. And the web page is universal; works on pretty much every device you can imagine. So that's the direction we took it.
Okay, so My Shop Assist basically is a cloud-based shop management software where you can update customers, track your expenses, and determine a net profit.
Yeah, so it is a
gross profit rather.
Yeah, and it doesn't really do gross profit so much. It's more of a project management system. So you would have all your
specifically to our industry.
Yeah. So we made it specifically for and the interesting thing is every shop is run a little differently, and there's all kinds of different types of performance shops. So the typical software you see with service shops, so like your Midas or Firestone or whatever, they have their own software, and they also have other opportunities, so like AllData and Mitchell, which are the kind of the go-to for service shops. Those ones have manuals and book hours, and they tell you what parts are going to need and how much time it's going to take you. And they don't work at all for our performance side of things. So, when you build a roll cage in a car, you don't know how long it's going to take. There's no manual for that. You just have to do it, and you have to be diligent about tracking your time and expenses and material and parts and whatever else you're doing to the car. And so we designed it to be a project management solution for multiple projects, I guess. So we can handle any number of cars within the software and any number of tasks and parts. And it's all not really open source, but open-ended. So you don't have it comes blank. So you enter in your own tasks and you enter in your own parts. And so you build it up to work for your shop in that respect. And so
I've experienced something like that where a shop management software is pre-configured to certain categories and classes that don't apply. Mm-hmm. So I think the direction that you're going is the only one that makes sense because of the nature of our industry, it has to be customizable per shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's literally every shop we visit is slightly different from the others, and they all need to do it their own way. And part of that is just because once you're kind of stuck in the way you do business, it's hard to change. So we kind of have to model it to fit each shop individually, and because it's cloud-based, a lot of the shops, I should say maybe half of them, are able to figure it out themselves and adapt it to their business. And the other half we help out with. And usually the busier shops that don't have the time to figure it out, they're the ones that, interestingly, need the most help to get going. So they either it's like a changing direction in a battleship, right? It takes some time, Yeah. Whereas a smaller, 1 or 2 man shop can quickly pick it up and figure it out quickly. They have the ability to adapt quickly. And that's really the basis of it was tracking all the parts and the labor that you're doing in it. So time tracking, documenting your work with pictures, and then the benefits of it being cloud-based was where we were able to make it so that customers could log in and see the status of their vehicles, so they don't have to call you anymore. So we really wanted to reduce the number of phone calls for updates, and that was the direction for that.
Right.
And then we have the ability to distribute your work to your employees, so you can assign tasks to technicians, and they have their own login, so they have their own to-do list. And we've got all kinds of features in there that are really directed specifically for our industry, and that's kind of where our advantage is. So we don't have to compete with ALLDATA and Mitchell because they don't know the needs of our industry as well as we do. Because I'm literally doing it every day. So.
Yep. Why do you think it's a badge of honor in our industry to work 16 hours a day? It seems like that's something that people hold dear. They're like, I work 16 hours a day. Does MSA intend to be the tool for shop owners to be able to succeed in less time?
Yes. So, it's a badge of honor, and I think a lot of that has to do with because it's a passion. People would not spend 16 hours a day doing something they don't like to do. So either you need to be paid a lot of money to do it, or you need to really love to do it. And I did that. I did the 7 days a week thing for a long time. I did 16 hours a day, like sleeping 3-4 hours a night. Your body adapts to it. It's kind of crazy, but if I tried sleeping 3 hours now, I'd be like a zombie the next day. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so people love to do it, and that's part of the key to working so long. But I think what becomes more of a problem than just working a lot of hours is if you work a lot of hours and don't make any money doing it. I think that is where the problem becomes, and I think that's where shops really struggle with. And I struggled with it, and it took really looking at my savings, and I'm like, I'm going to be done really quickly here. What's going on? And looking at that and saying, what am I doing wrong? And, it kind of happened that Todd came on board at the same time, and so we were able to develop a solution for it. And, I mean, I'm not going to lie, the first year, even with the software, is still a struggle. You develop the software, you kind of have to learn how to use it. And so it's not like you just sign up for it and immediately you're making more money. You have to work it into your processes, and you have to actually make your system work with the software is kind of what I've done. And now I work 5 days. I probably work only 4 days a week now. And I work maybe, cause I do the MSA stuff, obviously, for as much time as I can as well. So, I'm at the shop 5 days a week, but probably only do about 4 days of work. And
work on Evolution Dynamics.
Exactly. Yeah. So I come in around 9:30. I drop my daughter off at school, and then I come up here. I'm here about 9:30 every day, and I leave pretty often at 7 every day. So I'm not working 16 hours a week anymore. And this is the astonishing thing. So between working less hours, working less days, and I take probably, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks off a year doing other things. So obviously we do the SEMA show, the PRI show, Texas 2K. I took a family vacation for the first time in a long time this year. I took several MSA trips, so we do consulting work, so we visit shops, and those take a week each. So I think I probably only work about 10 months at the shop. And the crazy thing is, with just myself and Richard, who's my my business partner in Evolution Dynamics, just us two, we still do more revenue than we did when I had 3 full-time guys and myself and Richard working. So that's kind of the thing you look at and you're like, holy crap. I was doing it so wrong that I can have, less than half the manpower with, it's probably more like a quarter of the manpower with the amount of time I actually spend in the shop, and actually do more revenue. And obviously with more revenue, with such a reduction in payroll, so not having to pay 3 full-time guys, the profit went from using my own savings to keep the thing afloat to actually being able to start paying back debt and making a difference. And last year, so 2014, was actually the most amount of money I have ever had to claim on my taxes, even when I worked Lockheed and did the shop on the side. So it's turned around enough where I'm making more money. Evolution Dynamics is kind of the realization of how bad you can run a shop, and then how good it can be when you do it right. And I'm not saying Evolution Dynamics is perfect, because I still, to this day, am trying to make it better and improve the processes that I have in place, and make the shop more profitably yet. So I know I have not reached the ceiling, and we put a lot of time into improving things, and I haven't reached the ceiling of the efficiency and profitability of the shop. And that's what's the amazing thing is, I know I think I can probably double my profits from where I'm at still. And it's a slow process. You got to you can't just change everything in a week. That's kind of what some shops think is going to happen. But so
give people an idea of the amount of time that they should expect to maybe improve by 50%. What have you noticed and seen?
Yeah, so the first thing I did was tracking my parts that I put on cars. So that was probably the biggest dent that I did immediately. I wasn't giving away stuff as much. It still happens, but the cost of the stuff I give away is much, much smaller now. So I pretty much get every single fuel pump, everything, I would say probably above $10 on up. Either I am knowingly giving it to them, and, it's kind of one of those things where if you have a $10,000 bill, then I put a $5 fitting on your car, after the fact, it's one of those things that, the $5 is, I'm not worried about collecting $5 from you when you're spending $10,000 with me. But if you're spending $50 with me, I'm not going to give you a $5 fitting, So I'm much more aware of what parts I'm putting on projects. So I've gotten into the routine of every car I work on, going to the iPad or my phone or the computer in the shop and adding the part to the job. I'm religious with it now. The next, and so it still took a long time to figure that all out, right? So getting a computer in place and an iPad on my roll card, and just being able to have that right in front of you all the time is what is needed to be able to track it. If it's not in front of you, you're not going to do it. And that was early on with MSA, that was kind of our struggle. We only had one computer doing it, and it was a great idea, but implementation, I had some things to learn with it. So that's now what we recommend, is people putting a computer in their shop in front of their techs. And so then the next moving on was, that was kind of a learning process. And then it was tracking time and knowing how much time was actually going into a project. And this is we tell this one to a lot of people as a roll cage example. So, building roll cages is fun for me. It's like in engineering, structures. So you take a structures class in engineering, you learn how to build trusses, and trusses are roll cages. And it's fun for me. And I used to charge about $2,500 to do a whole cage. And I was like, man, $2,500 is a bunch of money. It's one project. It's mostly labor. So, it was about $600 to $800 in material. So it's still close to $2,000 in labor. But then you actually track this, and this is kind of the epiphany we had with MSA and our time tracking stuff within it. We had 80 hours in one cage, and 80 hours when you have to charge really about $100 an hour to keep the doors open, that cage should have been $8,000, not including material.
And you're already thinking $2,500 is a lot.
Yeah, and $2,500, what customer is going to spend $8,000 for a roll cage? And honestly, the answer is customer. The right customer, yes. And so the guy that wants to spend $2,500 on a cage, there is people that will make that cage, but those people will not make money doing it.
Yeah,
and a bolt-in cage maybe, but
they'll have to weed themselves out. Unfortunately, I call them whack-a-moles. There are always going to be guys that'll do a $2,500 cage without a doubt, because they want to get involved. There's the passion aspect, but they're not going to be able to survive. So they're going to be inconsistent, but because of the industry and the passion and people just love doing it, there's always going to be another whack-a-mole to pop up.
Yeah,
but they won't make money doing it, so it's not sustainable.
They won't make money doing it. Right, and it takes I was doing it, so I was one of those people that was trying to do it, but I learned that it was not sustainable. I had to adapt. And
so if somebody comes into your shop right now and says $2,500 is my limit, you'll let them walk out the door?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, now $5,000, I'd still let them walk out the door. I won't touch a cage for typically a cage that we do now, and I don't do very many of them because people are not, they look at the price and it discourages people really quickly. But we will be kind of starting around $6,000 for a roll cage. And then when you add in all the labor to strip the interior and take the sound deadening out and cut the doors open, it's closer to probably $8,000 to $10,000 to do it. And that's kind of where we expected it to be. I do bring in some friends who like to help out on the side to do some of the easier tasks, so like taking the interior out. So I am not spending every moment of my time doing it, but I do, and I don't even know how to weld. So I do the bending, the tube fitting, the design work. We do all that myself, and then I have several friends who are TIG welding, and they can make most of it's TIG welded on our cages. So, but yeah, that's kind of the learning experience, was throwing away all the cages I built over the years, like literally just giving them to the customer, giving them my time and my money to do it. And there's a level of, as a new shop, you have to kind of establish yourself. You can't just charge somebody for a $10,000 cage without anybody knowing what you can do. So I guess getting started, you may have to do it for pennies on the dollar. But we kind of proved ourselves with the Crash that the cages we build are strong and can do it. And so now when people look at me and say, "You're going to charge me $6,000 for this cage?" and I say yes, then they, if they want to do it, they do it. And that we haven't had that problem anymore.
So what's your suggestion to people just trying to get started? Do you suggest doing a $2,500 cage?
No. I mean, you have to pick your battles. So I would be looking for the stuff that you do that makes you money. So if you're good at tuning, make sure you charge enough to make money tuning, and start there. If fabrication is your thing, track the time it takes you to do it. And as an owner operator, your time is your own money. So you can spend the 80 hours doing it, and it's not going to cost you anything. It's just costing you your time, and your time is kind of the your payment into this industry. So I think pretty much everybody has had to do it. I know, I'm sure you have too. You have to do a few freebies to get your name out there, and those freebies are very expensive for your time.
You got to pay your way, or pave your way. And,
pay your way, or pay your dues.
Yeah, but you can't you can't pay your stripes for 40 years.
No, you cannot do it. Yeah,
right. Earn your stripes.
Right.
People are doing.
And so that's where my shop is at now. So like I look at places I can improve the shop on, and once you get into the routine of like every month kind of picking something you can improve and doing it, it becomes second nature. Like then you're like looking for the next thing to improve, and it's not like, it's like tuning a car, right? So you're spending hours trying to find that 5 extra horsepower to go, a tenth of a second faster the drag strip. You spend all this time doing it, but if you don't look at your own shop and your own living, like that's how you survive. If you're not doing it with your own business, what are you doing? Like you should be tuning your own shop. And so I've gotten really used to, and Richard and Todd, we kind of, all work together on this. And so we each maybe month or two, we kind of look at a way to improve things. And so, we have all kinds of ways to organize the shop better. And we do a lot of tool analysis and capital equipment analysis where we just bought a dyno for the first time like 8 months ago. And I've been tuning cars for, almost 10 years now, and I literally street tuned probably 90% of them. We rented a dyno from several local shops for quite a while too, but I would still say maybe 60-70% of them are still street tuned. It took building a database, like understanding how many cars I was tuning, what I was charging for them, what is my trends in this kind of like market for tuning. And so we were able to take that and know that just based off the cars we do already, we can afford the payment on the dyno. And Todd, he has a friction circle fab. It's kind of his pet project as well. It's a fab business, but he decided he can bring cars on the dyno, and that's something he can use to fill his time. So that's kind of like the icing on the cake. So we went into buying a dyno knowing full well that we can pay for it. Even if we just make the minimum payments on it for whatever it is, 5 years or whatever, we can pay the bills pretty easily. And I guarantee you, probably 50% of the people that buy dynos open their business, buy a dyno, and have no idea how to make it work. Not that they know how to use a dyno, but to make the finances work on it.
Yep.
So, and we kind of that's kind of the direction we've been going. So every once in a while we look to improve the shop, and that's what MSA is about, and that's what we develop. The features we develop in MSA are geared to improve processes within a shop.
So I want to shift gears a little bit let's talk about Do It for a Living and your involvement and how Do It for a Living has impacted you, and what's the plan moving forward?
Okay, so
what are we going to do?
First of all, I'll tell you how it has impacted me. So, like, I listened to, I don't know how I got it on my feed, but I saw it on Facebook that you had done this, and this was, I think you were still doing your 2 preview episodes, and I listened to it, and Ben Strader was one of them, and I listened to that, and I was like, oh, this is going to be good. I mean, me and Todd had actually even been trying to figure out how to, I mean, I'm terrible, I'm not creative, figuring out how to market MSA and how to reach people on kind of what we have learned on how to improve the shop, improve our situations. And I saw your podcast and I was like, holy shit, like this is exactly what has to happen. Like this is the path forward. And I mean, quite literally, I listened to the Ben Strader podcast, the first one, and I emailed him immediately after telling him my story, and I wanted to be a part of what he has to do. And we can talk about the class in a minute, but so everything about the Do It for a Living podcast is relevant to what we do. Like every podcast you have done so far, I listen to them and I can relate to everything that everybody says. I know what they're talking about, and like I feel people's pain, and I laugh when people have funny stories. It's just everything about it is like hits me right in the heart. Like I love it. And so we had approached you with advertising within the podcast as a My Shop Assist, and it's hard to put all that stuff together. And so after you had dropped off, I think I guess July, when the time consumption of the podcast is just too much, and you were doing all the half mile racing, I believe, is what you were spending a lot of time doing.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time doing half mile. Yeah.
And you yourself are transitioning your business away from trying to get away from the service into the manufacturing, So, I mean, you are obviously trying to transform your business as well. And so that takes so much time. And I think it just worked out pretty well where, you were not having the time to invest in it anymore, and we wanted to keep it going. And so, like we approached you, I think it was in October, November timeframe, about getting involved with it. So
just too big of a project, and I'm glad that we have a team now to get this thing back, because I can't tell you how many emails I get where people are saying, "When's it coming back?"
Yeah,
so tell us about what's going forward. Are we going to have? What can people expect? Can people expect a weekly format to resume? And when will they go live? Fridays or Mondays? Tell us about what people can expect moving forward.
Yeah, so we are going to – it's going to be a little less ambitious than what you started with. So the twice-a-week thing is too much for us at the moment, so we're going to start with once a week. We have spent a lot of time laying out the groundwork for this thing, so we have we've already got 50 topics and potential interviewees on a spreadsheet for ourselves. So we have a full year's worth of weekly podcasts that we're going to be doing. And I probably already have maybe a third of them already committed to doing it. And we already are starting to record several of them already. So we will be doing this every week. I think we'll probably go with the Monday morning one, so people can wake up or come back after the end of the week and have something to look forward to instead of just the grind.
Right.
And we're going further than just you have traditionally done a very similar style interview for everybody, and we want to kind of add into that format specific topics that people are needing to know more about.
So we're going to have topic-based and interview-based.
Yeah, so the stories are important. Like the stories really give people, they can relate to it. You can relate to the business, you can relate to what the person's talking about. And then we're trying to pick people that are very good at a specific area, and those people will expand on specific questions. So, for example, the first ones we're going to be doing are related to sponsorship, and that's a very poorly understood subject for most, and like I've made every mistake you can in this as well. So I have a lot to learn as well from people, and so we're going to talk to manufacturers, racers, several shops on how they handle it and what they do to, I guess, get your name out there, and how does it all work. And it's going to be more logistics as well. So, like contracts, or how do you actually do the sponsorship instead of just handing free parts and labor to somebody? Like, that does not ever work.
Right.
So that's kind of the idea of what we're going to do. And then we've also got a couple things we're also going to do. For example, a lot of people talk about books that are relevant to what we do. I think you'll have Todd will be doing book reviews. He likes to read a lot of these, and he wants to do a little section on doing book reviews. And we also want to do one with like tool reviews as well. So, what tools shops use. And I think this is really cool because I love finding new tools that people have never heard about or I never knew about before.
Yeah.
Like, that's always the fun thing to me, is how to make yourself more productive in the shop without actually having to do more work. That's something I find interesting. And we also have some plans for some webinars. Some of those are going to be real entry. So if you're wanting to get started in a shop, Todd is working on putting a webinar together for the basics of getting your shop going. So,
and where are people going to be able to find out about all the stuff that we have going on?
Yeah, so everything's still going to be on the Do It For a Living webpage. So that's we're not changing that at all. We may
doitforaliving.net. www.doitforaliving.net.
Exactly, and we also have the Facebook pages. So you have the doitforaliving.net Facebook page, and then there's the community as well, which is the Do It For a Living community. And that one is we're trying to keep that one kind of exclusive to people who are industry related. As there's so much interest in it, it's incredibly hard to filter people who are fans versus people who are actually doing it for a living.
But the community is a way for shop owners to ask questions and talk with other shop owners without the fear of customers being there. So we can be honest and open about what's going on and what the hurdles are and how to jump them.
Yeah, that's exactly how to put it. And moderating that stuff is going to be a challenge. So I think there's 4 of us. So you, myself, Todd, and I think Chris is also one of them.
Yep.
And so, as the group grows, I think we may have to make some more ground rules and understand how to do that. But yes, the goal is exactly that, to make sure that it's people who are legitimately involved in this industry and that may have questions or have answers to other people's questions.
So it's not just for fans, only people in the industry. And moving forward, the rules might tighten up. So if you don't belong, don't be surprised if we have to give you the axe. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have the doitforaliving.net page, which is for the fans. And I think a lot of the content will be on there as well. Well, actually, all of the content will be on there except for the questions and the discussions within the group, the community group. So the doitforaliving.net page is for fans, is the way we're kind of structuring this.
Yep. So if you have questions that you want people to, or topics that you want covered, post it on the doitforaliving.net Facebook fan page.
Yep. Yeah,
cool.
That's exactly it.
So I want to we got off. We talked about MSA a little bit. We talked about kind of the direction for Do It For a Living. We're coming back bigger and better than ever, a little bit different direction. It's going to have the same heart and soul where it's all about give and like trying to provide a resource for people to be successful, because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is grow the industry, make it more professional, make people more successful, and hopefully attract better people into the industry. So I want to bring it back now to our interview format, and I want to know a little bit more about you and finish this thing up. So, Kevin, what's the 5-year or the 1 and 5 year goal? Like, what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? What's your BHAG?
Yeah, so evolution dynamics has always been like my passion. Like, I love doing it. I don't particularly care about changing oil all day long. I really like tuning and building engines and racing. The racing is my passion. And, like, part of doing a service shop is having to actually, have to do the clutches and the oil changes to keep the money coming in so I can do the racing. And so for me, with Evolution Dynamics, my goal is to kind of wind it down back into a racing only sort of part-time business is kind of my goal. The My Shop Assist thing is got a lot more room for growth, I guess. Yeah, potential. So that's kind of my time as far as working is going to be going towards that, and then keeping the Evolution Dynamics is more of a hobby, a passion, and helping the guys that race with me like make our cars faster, and that's the Evolution Dynamics side of it. And so for MSA, the 1 year goal I have for that one is we're trying to ramp it up enough where I can subside off of it takes a whole lot of customers to be able to pay yourself when you're charging. So MSA is $99 a month. It takes a whole bunch of people to be customers before I can afford to do development work continued forward and pay myself. And so we're working on we're close to that point where I can start paying myself on it, and that's my 1 year goal between me and Todd is so that way we can devote more and more time in this. And it's we think it will kind of once we can spend more time on it by paying ourselves, I think it's going to grow a lot faster. That's the kind of the nature of this kind of industry.
Who are some of the shops that are using MSA now?
So several people you've interviewed. So myself, Terry Fair at Vorschlag is a big one. I have a really good blog post on our My Shop Assist page about English racing, so they're a pretty big one. Shepherd Transmission uses it on their Mitsubishi side. So Trevor, if you ever call over there, Trevor is always the guy who deals with the Evo stuff. They use it in their service side for Mitsubishi. I mean, there's a ton of Subaru shops. Which is interesting because I don't really know that many Subaru shops, but they sort of have expanded on it. Your D3, you did the interview with the guys at D3. They use it. So a lot
of big people in the industry are using the software. And what do you think the biggest hurdle to widespread adoption is? Is it awareness?
I think some of it's awareness, and I think some of it is resistant to change. So there's always the people that are, I'm running my shop really well, I'm making money, and I don't need it. So there's some of that. So convincing people that you may be missing out on a lot of opportunities is very hard, and so teaching them is a hurdle we have. And then there's always I get people that tell me they're too small, and I also get people that tell me they're too big. So we are a 1 to 2 man team here, so me and Richard, and it works so well with such a small team. It's amazing, So anybody who tells me that they're too small is fooling themselves. If you can't justify it at a one person shop, then you should not be running a shop. Is kind of the mentality I have with that. There are the bigger shops.
If it's $99 a month and you forget one fuel pump in a month, you've just paid for it.
Yep, and same thing with working on the cars, right? So if you're charging somebody hourly doing fab work and you forget to bill them for 1 hour work, that's $100 an hour that you miss out on, and the hourly one is worse.
For everybody listening, I'll tell you right now that until you document it and you start to pay attention, you don't realize how much of your time you're giving away. I can tell you on the low end, it's probably 10 hours a month.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And we have done. And related to the course we put together with Ben Strader, the Essentials of Operating a Shop, we actually went through the math of determining the actual efficiency of a shop, so the service efficiency, your labor time. And
so the difference between build hours and spent hours.
Yes, and so even with MSA, kind of when we were early on, so I think this is probably from 2013, so like one of the first full years of MSA, I was at 47% efficient, which is, I thought it was okay.
So for every 10 hours that you spend, you're billing for 4.7?
Yeah, 4.7, right? So it's not very good. And the amazing thing is I've already improved it, I think, almost 10%. So we're over 50%. Now we're about 55, 57%. But what the crazy thing is, when you do $500,000 in labor, and I'm not that high, so I think we do about close to $300,000 in labor, maybe. I haven't looked in the last couple of weeks, but you make a 10% improvement on that. That's $30,000 extra in your pocket for literally doing no extra work. And that's where the whole epiphany came. Where like, wow, like if I improve my shop a little bit here and there, it adds up a lot, and that's now why my shop is actually profitable. And until you actually start trying it and trying to look at the numbers and actually making sense of it all, you're missing out on a lot. And so this industry you can make money doing, you just have to figure out how to do it. And we've kind of laid the groundwork to do that. And so I guess continuing on with the MSA goal. So the 1-year one is to be able to transition myself over to that, and our 5-year goal is to basically make MSA a requirement for being in this industry. I want to be able to do everything that a shop needs to do. So this includes some of the things we've talked about are chatting, so messaging with your customers and other shops and your internally. Having a web interface, so like if you do I've been talking to Shepard on this one, or not John Shepard, but Trevor at Shepard Transmission was always to be able to have a customer fill a form out on their web page and it automatically dump it into MSA as a job. So totally hands off from typically what now is you print off a form and you put it in your box and you send it with it, right? So, and then you're doing it by hand and then you're sending it to the shop and then they have to take the form and they have to put it in their books. And so everything is like 3 or 4 times the amount of work than it should be, and it's kind of ridiculous when you actually look at it all. And so we're working to make every aspect of operating a shop more efficient.
Nice. So no big deal. You just want to be the industry standard for running a shop?
Exactly right.
So, Kevin, as you know, as an avid listener and head honcho, we like to take action on Do It for a Living. What action item can you recommend for the people listening right now that they can do this week to improve their situation?
Yeah, so I had to think about this question for a while because there's a lot of things I would say. And so kind of the thing I would say for shops right now is make a list of things you can actually improve on and write those down and make a plan for the year. So make a 1-year plan on areas you can improve your efficiency. And it's all about the efficiency and productivity, not trying to get more customers. If you're busy, having more customers is only going to make it worse. You need to streamline the customers you have now. And so make a plan on areas you can improve upon and implement those like 1 month at a time. Make a small step each month. And I think it'll pay off in the long run. And, the sooner you take action, the sooner you see that $30,000 bump by making yourself 10% improvement. So I think the EO Fire podcast, which is, I think, an inspiration for you, and Todd loves it too, and I've started listening to it as well. But he called it the $100,000 mistake, I think. I think that's what he calls it, where he delayed coming out with his podcast for, I think he said like 6 months. Or
it was less than that.
Okay,
I think
it was pretty short.
I think it was 30 days.
Okay, so he calls it the $100,000 mistake because he delayed making the podcast, like releasing the podcast that he had recorded. And that delay, he calls it a mistake because within a year he was making $100,000 every month is what he said. And if he had come out with it 30 days earlier, he would have been $100,000 richer sooner.
And he did it because of fear.
Fear, yeah, and that's exactly the same thing that we have in our industry. So if you want to do it and you just keep putting it off because you're too busy, you're always going to be too busy. Like there is never a time you won't be too busy. And
there's never a right time. Like if you're looking for the right time,
it's never going to come. So yeah, so that's kind of what I would say is make a plan and then start implementing it immediately. One thing at a time. Doesn't have to be big changes. Just do something. So
yeah, ready, fire, aim.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's great advice, and I'd second that notion. I think it's important to make plans for sure, but you can't plan everything, and so a lot of times I feel like there's no in between ground. People are either like fully shooting from the hip, or they have analysis paralysis, and there's no in between. And so the first step to maybe driving a plan or getting a plan done or taking a big goal on is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So,
yeah,
so
exactly.
Start doing it. So no fucking excuses. Start doing work today.
Yep.
Cool. So, Kevin, I want to jump into quick answer questions, and we're going to fire them off at you and fire them right back. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
What software program are you using daily?
So obviously my Shop Assist, and then we use QuickBooks
Shameless
for all
plug.
the accounting side. Yeah, shameless plug. QuickBooks is still how we do all our accounting, so MSA ties with that. So then for the My Shop Assist side, we use a lot of tools. I use actually within the shop, I still use. I used to use VNC, which is a remote desktop app, and I just started using TeamViewer, which I really, really love. And so we have 3 computers at the shop, and then I have my computer at my house and my phones, or rather my phone and my iPads. And TeamViewer allows me to tie all of them together, so I have everything at my fingertips that I need. So I can access QuickBooks from my house if I need to. And so that also works with Google Drive. So we store all our files and our tunes, and our Dyno is even saving all the files to the drive.
So you're using TeamViewer on your phone?
Yeah, I use TeamViewer on my phone. So I can make purchase orders and process people's credit cards from my phone using TeamViewer, logging into a computer, accessing QuickBooks. So it's a a tunnel of stuff, but it works extremely well. I mean, I'm kind of surprised at how efficient it is. And then for the My Shop Assist side, we also use TeamViewer. We use Basecamp for our project, so it's one project, so we have one very large project, and so we use Basecamp for that with our developers. We're working on switching that to Trello because we also use Slack. So Slack is like a group messaging thing. So like if you remember like AOL Instant Messenger or ICQ, that was a individual messaging system. So this one kind of works with groups, and then you can call out individual people, and you can do specific topics. So I really like Slack a lot. We have a Dynojet, so we use that almost daily. Excel, Paint, MATLAB Simulink is what I used to use a lot. I don't use it nearly as much as I used to, but those are kind of the softwares that we use.
Got it.
A little bit of everything.
Do you have a favorite app that you use daily?
TeamViewer really is my favorite app that I've got. I mean, that thing is really powerful when I can access everything I need on my computer that way. So that's kind of my favorite one.
Cool.
Everybody will tell me I'm heavily addicted to Facebook. I'm on that probably most of the time. I hate it. I hate how much time it sucks out of my life, but I do think I get quite a bit out of it, though. So it allows me to understand trends in the industry very quickly. So it's not all just wasted time. So,
yep. What's your favorite shop tool?
This one I love. Like I said, I love tools. So the Dynojet dyno, obviously, I love. I've used Mustang dynos before. I'm really impartial to what type it is. It's just it's a way for me to, actually put numerical results to work, which is really cool.
So just dyno in general, huh?
Dyno in general is a good one. We have the ultrasonic cleaner, so I love building engines too. I mean, I'm not you've interviewed some guys that are going to be building pro mod engines. They're going to be a lot smarter than I am. I can build an Evo engine. We've done good work with them, but I kind of learned assembling engines in long blocks how to make everything clean, and that's where the ultrasonic cleaner came in place. I think it's still kind of a new technology, and if you walk around SEMA and PRI, there's always ultrasonic cleaning vendors, and it's worth a chat talking with them and seeing what they can do, because they're expensive machines, but they do excellent work, and it's something that you can kind of set it and forget it. So you put some parts in it and you go do some other stuff, and you come back and it's clean. You don't have to do it yourself. And then, like I said, on our the My Shop Assist page, we have a blog where I've done a couple different reviews of specific tools that are pretty handy.
How do we get to that?
Just myshopassist.com, and then click the blog link, and if you scroll down, you'll find them all. So we have the Circlip Injector, which is one for putting Circlips into the pistons to hold the wrist pin in place. That's something we saw. A guy came to our booth at PRI, and
so not spiral locks.
Not spiral locks. No, this is the C-clips. And so he came to our booth, and we were talking to him, and I had an engine in front of us kind of as a display to kind of draw people in. And he's like, hey, I make tool for that. And I was like, what? And he showed it to me, and I bought one. And I mean, that thing is like one of those things that's like hit you on your head, stupidly easy to make. And you're like, why didn't I think of that? And it saves me so much time on every engine I build.
And thumbs.
And ruining pistons by scratching them all up.
Yeah.
I mean, oh man, it's bad. So this thing is really cool.
Word.
So
And then the number one thing that everybody wants to hear, tell us about a game-changing product that you've seen in the last year.
I'm a big technology guy, so like I said, I didn't grow up doing car stuff, so I come more from the engineering background. So technology is one of the things that I follow, and so I think F1, Formula One, is like one of my favorite things to do. So I watch every race, and the technology coming from there is really going to be. I think that's going to be the game-changing product, especially the hybrid turbos that they're building this year. So, if for people who aren't aware of it, they have a little electric generator / motor inside of them, and so you can use battery power to spool up the turbo,
and it's charging.
Yeah, if you have excess energy going through the turbo, you can use it to charge the batteries, and rather than it's not going to. I guess it's not building excess power through the engine. It's using that energy to regenerate the batteries. So
moving forward, it's not out of the realm of possibility that an 80 millimeter turbo can be on a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine and get up to speed quickly.
Yeah, before the 10,000 RPM red line, right? Yeah, I think that is going to be the future. And I did not see anything at PRI this year, but I heard somebody said that maybe it was even Garrett had already had a display of maybe it was somebody that maybe got a tour or something like that. But people are already developing. I mean, obviously they're on the Formula One cars, so somebody's developing it, and that technology eventually makes it down to us. And I feel like that bridge is slowly is getting quicker. So the path from Formula One to our industry is getting quicker. It's not a 20-year round trip anymore.
Yeah.
It's maybe a 5-year round trip. So
I think it's interesting. I think we should talk about this more, actually. I'd like to talk to you about this off air a little bit. But making power is easy. Putting it to the ground is the hard part.
Yeah,
so
yeah, for sure.
As all these technologies emerge to make more power, and then we have engine technologies that make engines more reliable, like the Evo engine and the Honda 4-cylinder engines. Like these engines in particular can put up with a ridiculous amount of abuse. And as we move forward, smaller engines have better gas mileage. We have new technologies to make engines deal with a bunch of power. We have new technologies to produce a bunch of power, like the trickle-down technology from F1. And then, so making power and making it reliably becomes the relatively easy part. Putting it to the ground and making the car move forward becomes the hard part. So, like the way I see it, the direction of the industry is going to be power application. Not
for sure.
Just creation, but power management.
Yeah, so putting the 80 millimeter turbo on your Honda is not going to do you any good if you can't put it down.
Right.
And
and on different surfaces with different tires and under different conditions.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this at the SEMA show this year, was traction control, and like you said, you're moving into the Corvette market, and it's one of those things that is like almost non-existent. Everybody adds a lot of power, and unless you're on a drag strip, you get no traction. And so
a couple guys have figured it out really well.
Yeah, so those guys are going to be doing really well until everybody else can figure it out, right? So
hey, Kevin, to end the conversation, what do you think the future of automotive performance is? I know that we just talked about it briefly, but can you summarize?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is, I've been around for 10 years, so not as long as some people, but it's getting very tech-heavy very quickly. I feel like you're going to have to almost have an engineering degree to do some of the stuff that is coming out, and I kind of feel like that is going to be the future. You're going to have to be very smart. If you don't have a degree, you're going to have to spend a lot of time learning theory and reading books and understanding how it works. The Tesla Model S is a great example. So that car is, in my opinion, the best car on the road you can get today. I think the technology is unbelievable. And the amazing thing is, your run-of-the-mill service shop would not have any idea what to do on anything on it, right? So that's an example of how the tech is gonna move forward really, really rapidly, and I think it's gonna at least for the performance market, we're gonna work really hard to have to make sure people can do these kind of things, and you're gonna have to learn to do that. So that's kind of the direction I think the automotive performance is gonna go, very engineering and tech related. So
yeah, how do we connect with you and your company?
My email address is kevin@myshopassist.com. Obviously, www.myshopassist.com is our webpage.
So My Shop Assist.
Assist, yep. And that is where everything is. So we have tutorial videos. That's where you sign up for the software. That's where our blog is. I have all the contact information on there, so you can call us from there. You can email us. We have our Facebook page as well. So we do that as well. So that's the best way to do it, is just myshopassist.com.
Cool. Well, you guys can check out more details about this guest at doitforaliving.net. And we're just super stoked to be back, and want to say to everybody listening right now, thank you. Thanks for the support. Thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for the emails. And stay tuned.
Yeah, and I want to thank you for letting us get involved with this as well, Reed. I mean, it's a great opportunity you've created an amazing product here. The industry needs it so badly, and you were really on the forefront of making it successful. So thank you for that, and I'm glad we can be involved with it.
Appreciate it. Looking forward to what we have to come. Stay tuned, everybody. Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum.